June the 26th of last year, I made an announcement to my kids and to my family that I wasn't going to write any more books. I've written 40 books. Many of them have been very, very successful. All of them have been very successful. Children's books, books that were textbooks before I was writing books for the public back in the 1970s. And I said, I've just done enough of that. And the idea of having to face 500 empty pages and fill them from in here, because unlike many authors, people that call themselves authors, who have other people work for them and write for them and so on, I write everything I have ever published has been written by me by hand. So it's a great labor. It's a labor of love, but it's also a labor of a lot of pressure, to produce and so on. And that was on June the 26th, and I just felt some relief from that. And now I don't have to write another book. Isn't that great? I'm free. I can do some other things. I can travel, but I've traveled the world anyway. That was June 26th, 2012. June 27th. Honestly, this is a true story. I woke up and I was reading a book. And the book was called To Know We Are Loved. It's part of a trilogy written by a man named Rashad Field. And I came across a passage in his book while I'm reading in the morning, because I'm always reading. And this is what it said. It said, if we stop for a moment, it is possible to perceive a pattern in our lives. The motivators that have influenced us become more obvious. We are able to see life unfolding from both ends at once, coming into the present moment. But until we get to a certain point of realization, this is not possible, because everything is still seen as a series of apparent causes and effects. Now, that may not mean a lot to you, but that jumped out at me, and it became a guiding principle for me. So I want to say it to you again. If you stop for a moment, it's possible to perceive a pattern in our lives. The motivators that have influenced us become more obvious. We're able to see life unfolding, and this is really underlined here, from both ends at once, coming into the present. But until we have got to a certain point of realization, this is not possible, because everything is still seen as a series of causes and effects. So that, and then he began to talk more in there about time. And that time is, he talked about two kinds of time. There's one time that is called cause and effect time. So that you look at your life, and most of the things that you think caused you to be where you are and be in the places that you are a result of all of the things that have happened to you in the past up until this moment. But he is talking about both ends. That is, not only are things that are occurred in the past affecting you today, but so are things from the future, what we call the future, that you're pulling from the future. So I like to put it this way. It's like think of your wisdom teeth. The moment that you are conceived, when that tiny little drop of human protoplasm, and in that tiny little drop, and at the moment of your birth, 9 months later, your wisdom teeth are there. Now, they're not going to be the result of something that's going to happen back here. They're already here. They just haven't manifested yet, so you will pull your wisdom teeth out of the future. Literally, 20 years from now, those things will show up, and you'll be pulling things out of the future. So he said this is like cause and effect time, And things are not only taking place in your life that happened in the past, but you're pulling things out of the future. And then he talked about another kind of time that he called eternal time. And eternal time isn't represented by a horizontal line of cause and effect, but by a vertical line that goes from you to God, or to your source of being. And this eternal time is something that is, I have a quote. I wrote a few things out to say tonight. He said, Thomas Traherne, a famous 17th century, not so famous, 17th century poet. He wasn't even discovered until the 19th century. He said, this moment, the moment that you're in right now, exists in infinite space, but there is a space also wherein all moments are infinitely exhibited, and the everlasting duration of infinite space is another region and a room of joys. A room of joys. So that there's something called eternal time. And eternal time is when everything in your life is taken care of for you. And I started writing about this. I started looking at my own life as a tapestry, and that there have been forces at work in my life that were preparing me for this moment, right here, right now, talking to you. And while you're going through them, you're not aware of them. It's only when you get to a place where you can step back and look at these all of these events that you begin to realize that I've been in some kind of training for everything that I've done, and I think that I'm the one who's making these choices all along. Here are some of the signposts of a new direction. Your ego is less insistent on having attention placed on it. There was a time when I could dominate every conversation, no matter where I was, no matter who I was with, and if I was with my wife or whatever. And I could be glib and verbal and use quotations and talk and get people to gather around and endlessly take the spotlight. Today I find myself hardly ever talking. I just love to sit back and watch and listen and observe and notice. Secondly, doing less, not more. Letting go and letting God becomes easier for you. Practicing non-interference. Boy, when I was writing Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life and living that part of the Tao, I remember reading one of the verses and thinking, it says, great sages do nothing, and because they do nothing, they get so much more done. And I just couldn't wrap my head around that, or my consciousness around that I could do less and get more done. I mean, we've grown up in a world where you have to go out and do more in order to get more. It says in the Tao, great sages accomplish great things by thinking small, rather than thinking big. That a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And the great sage just thinks of the single step and where they are. You get to a place where you're not trying so hard, but you're not failing at anything. You're just producing results, and you're not willing to judge the results, and it gets easier. Trying less. You begin to shun the spotlight. You begin to practice what the Tao taught me to practice, which is radical humility. Not taking credit, giving other people credit, not needing to have other people tell you how wonderful you are. Just simply practicing what the ocean teaches us. Stay low and let everything come to you. Unity begins to replace separation. Conflict then is eliminated. Remember, the mind at war with itself can never know God. Because knowing God means knowing oneness. And oneness means nothing to be in conflict with. You cannot be in conflict when you have oneness. There's only one. And we begin to see ourselves as connected to everything. Now, also on this voyage of two, and I just have to speak a few moments about this, it is what I call the fall. Virtually every spiritual advance that I've ever made in my life has been preceded by a fall of some kind or another. And I think you can expect a fall. And when you're in one, when you're in a low point, when you're struggling, the Tao says that built into all misfortune is good fortune. And built into all good fortune is misfortune. So that when you're in a place of misfortune, low, your relationship isn't working, the finances aren't coming, the news about your body, the medical diagnosis, things aren't the way you want them to be, all of the falls. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross had a wonderful quote. She said, if you shield the mountain from the windstorms, you'll never see the beauty of the carvings. So the idea really isn't to try to eliminate the storms of your life. The idea is to learn how to sing in the rain, how to dance in the storms, and be willing to go into the storm. And the final thing about this journey back, I talked about it in the film, it's called the quantum moments. And these are moments in our lives that really shift us, and they almost always come after a fall. So you have the fall, that as you have one of these falls, what you are doing is you are generating energy to propel yourself over the bar. If you remember in the film, I spoke about the night that I had one of the most shameful nights of my life, when I required my wife and our 5 little children, we had 5 children in 8 years, and they had closed the bar at the restaurant because someone the night before had served someone underage, and they wouldn't give me a beer with my meal. And I made everybody in the family be inconvenienced and get up and go to another restaurant because I was upset because I couldn't have my beer. Now that's a jerk. That's shameful behavior. It's hard for me to even admit it, but I'm better than I used to be. Now I'd only make them go 2 blocks instead of 3. No, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. And that morning, after that fall provided me with the energy. I began to think about myself. And what was I doing? How long has it been, Wayne, since you've gone without having a beer in the evening? I couldn't think of a day in the previous 2 decades. And what are you doing making your wife, who's had 5 children with you in 8 years, move? And you know what it means to move little children like that? You know, with all of the things that you have to take and put them in the cars and the seat belts and all of that, and none of it mattered to me. But that fall allowed me probably to be alive today. Because if I would have kept drinking the way I was, I wouldn't be alive today. It was going to kill me because alcohol's like sugar. I mean, and it's loaded with sugar, by the way. So these falls, when you have one, start looking for the energy and start seeing what it can bring to you as you move back.
Let's now examine the elements that most of us agree define the essence of our Creator, along with how they can help us sensibly approach Him. 1. God is love. We came from love, and we desire to return to that heaven while still on earth. I repeat Emerson's appropriate observation that love is our highest word and the synonym for God. In other words, if we dwell in love, we dwell in God. If God is love and cannot be anything other than what God is, and we wish to have a dialogue with God, then it seems to me that we come to our source in love, or we're wasting our time. So in the private, quiet, prayerful moments of asking for God's help, don't ask Him to help defeat others in any way. Rather, pray, Dear God, make me an instrument of Thy love. I want to be like You. I have forgiven them, and I have forgiven myself. And remember that there can be no forgiveness without love. And without love, there can be no way of being heard by our source. 2. God is peace. One of the most quoted verses in the Old Testament, which may also be my favorite biblical offering, is this: "Be still and know that I am God." So a corollary of this might then be agitated and turbulent, and you will never know God. Along with praying or communing with our source with peace in our heart, we must be still. This means taking time to get quiet before meditating, and also monitoring our breathing. As we exhale, we can train ourselves to let go of all of our non-peaceful thoughts, and as we inhale, we can breathe in spirit. We can keep reminding ourselves that all of the non-peace that's in the world is not of God. It's of ego. Then we can ask to be helped back to His peace. This approach will attract the assistance we're requesting. It's all about matching up the vibrational energy of our desire for peace with thoughts and behaviors that are consistently peaceful with those desires. 3. God is all-inclusive. We won't be heard by or receive assistance from our source if we're touting our separateness from our fellow humans. You see, when we seek special individual favors from God, or even when we seek to converse with our source from this perspective, we're once again living an illusion. If God were to acknowledge our belief in separation, perfect oneness wouldn't and couldn't exist. It's impossible for a source that creates everyone, and therefore is in everyone, to even have a dialogue with someone who's harboring ideas of their specialness or separation from everyone else. In conversing with our source, as always, we strive to be more like it. So we need to see ourselves as connected to everyone in the universe as we enter into prayer. Then we can ask for guidance and assistance in summoning the all-inclusive Spirit. Make me an instrument of you. Allow me to see you in everyone I encounter. Help me to see myself in others and to extend first to them what I aspire to myself. I've noticed that this is how you are, and I wish to be just like you. The key is getting past your ego-based idea of separation and instead seeing yourself as a part of the oneness of all. As Thomas Aquinas put it so succinctly, true peace consists in not separating ourselves from the will of God. 4. God is abundance. As St. Paul once said, God is able to provide you with every blessing in abundance. So why is there so much apparent shortage in the world, including people starving and living in poverty, and millions of folks having the persistent problem of too much month left at the end of the money? Well, what I can say for certain is that God is not to blame. There's more than enough to go around. After all, we came from a place that knows nothing of deprivation, and we arrived on a planet that has the capacity to grow the food and slake the thirst of every one of its inhabitants many times over. As a species, we human beings have brought the ideas of deficiency and depletions of God's gifts on ourselves, largely by taking very ungodlike actions. God serves all of us, but our greed has made us forget others and focus only on ourselves. As a people and as individuals, we've brought lack to our lives, and we can only fix this deficiency by becoming more like our always serving, endlessly abundant spiritual source. The answers to the resolution of poverty and scarcity are readily available to us, and they'd be resolved tomorrow if we remembered that we're all one on this planet. We all share the same origins, and we all end up back in the same non-place where we began. When we return to spirit in our heart, our governments will align with this truth, and our leaders will emerge from in-spirit consciousness. And 5, God is well-being. Spirit never has a fever and knows nothing of illness. So in my humble opinion, it makes no sense to pray or engage in a discourse with God from a perspective of asking to be healed, unless, that is, we have a firm understanding of what we mean by the word heal. If we mean to overcome an illness or infirmity, then I feel that we're again violating the truism that nothing can be what it isn't, including God. On the other hand, if we use the word heal to mean reconnecting to our source of well-being, then we're open to the potential of receiving assistance to overcome any infirmity. And that's how I use the word. I never asked God to help me to get over a feeling of sickness. Even when I had a minor heart attack 5 years ago, I asked to be made an instrument of God's well-being. I acknowledged that my body had taken on non-well-being, be it from my lifestyle, diet, and habits, or the toxins I breathe in and out, whatever. It was not of God. It was of me in this physical world, and I prayed to be reunited to a stream of well-being. I knew that I was a piece of God, and it was just as easy for him to heal a cut on my finger as it was to restore my heart to a healthy state. Since I knew that God's healing power was within me, I just needed to help my body remember this.
I think when you have a desire to align yourself in a sort of uncomplicated way and keeping yourself close to God, because Socrates had a very a significant observation, a couple thousand years ago. He said he is nearest to God who needs the fewest things. He is nearest to God who needs the fewest things, and the idea that you have to have more, and you also your life has to be very difficult and very complicated, and you have to attend a lot of meetings, and you have to satisfy everybody.
Why do you think it's so hard for people to say no?
Well, it's there's this whole element of that you're being a bad person, that there's something wrong with you if you're turning down somebody else's request. I mean, I get mailed by the thousands now, and I have for many, many years, and I have many, many, many people out there who have these great ideas about what it is that they would like to do, and then this project that they have, or this particular thing that they're going to do, and so on. And they want me to be a part of it and to get on the board for it and to do all of these kinds of things. And I just very politely say that I'm just not able to do that. And I don't tell myself that I should go around feeling guilty about being able to just say, I want my life to run the way I want it to run, rather than the way somebody else has dictated that it will run. Mm-hmm. And having that kind of confidence in yourself and the belief that it's okay to just say no to these things. And I must say it hasn't always been that easier for me. So let me just go through real quickly through these steps. I don't know if I can get through all of them, but the first one says unclutter your life. You'll simplify your life, and you'll be closer to God, and you'll be a more inspired person. This is in the book Inspiration. It starts on page 102. Unclutter your life. So, which means if you haven't worn it in the past year or two, just recycle it and give it away to others. Just go through your closet. It's a wonderful exercise to do. Go through your closet, pick out everything that you haven't worn in the last 18 months or so, and just get rid of it. Just put it in a pile and pass it along to somebody else. Get rid of old files that take up all this kind of space. Donate unused toys and tools and books and bicycles and all of these kinds of things to charitable people. Go through your garage clutter your life. Get rid of anything that keeps you mired in the state of acquisition and having to have more. And then secondly, clear your calendar of unwanted and unnecessary activities and obligations. So, take a look at that little book that seems to dictate your life, and just try to keep days in there and long periods of time in there where you're free to just make yourself available to God. Make yourself available to be and do what it is that you came into this world to do. And then keep your free time free. Be on the lookout for invitations to functions that keep you on top of society's pyramid, but that inhibit your access to joyful inspiration. Truly, everybody out there listening, truly, my most enjoyable kind of an evening is it's not an evening in which I have a whole lot of people over and people are drinking and there's party time and so on. It's an evening alone, an evening of meditation, an evening of reading, an evening of studying. I'm working on a book called Living the Tao, and I read the Tao every day. My job every day right now is to get up in the morning and to read one of the 81 verses of the Tao, to study it, to contemplate it, to think about it, and then to write an essay about how to apply it, to channel the great teachings of Lao Tzu from 2,500 years ago, and to listen to that and connect to it. I feel that that's one of the most glorious, exciting, exquisite experiences I've ever had in my life. I laid in bed last night and I was talking to someone that I love very much, and I was just saying, I can't even believe that my job is just to do this wonderful work of studying, 2,500-year-old literature. And to me, it's the most exquisite and peaceful. And I'm in bed 8 o'clock almost every evening, 8:30 at the latest, because I'm up at 3 in the middle of the night. If you saw my PBS show, it's like you remember what Rumi said, the morning breeze or the breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Do not go back to sleep. I love to be awake in the middle of the night when you're closest to God. 4, I say take time for meditation and yoga. When you guys called me to do the show just a little while ago, I said, you've got to give me 5 minutes, and I need 5 more minutes, because I had just come out of a yoga class, and I was soaking wet, and I just wanted to, take off those clothes. But for me, doing yoga every day and meditating every day they're not just fun activities that I do to fit in. They are the most important things that I do every single day, because they keep me centered. They keep me focused on God. Then I say in here, return to the simplicity of nature. spend more time outdoors. Spend time amongst the plants and the animals and the trees and hiking and walking. Another thing that I do every single day, because I don't have my life cluttered up with all kinds of meetings and businesses, and put distance between yourself and your critics. Align yourself with people who are like-minded in their search for simplified inspiration. Whether it's your manager, whether it's your attorney, whoever it is, if they're not bringing you peace, if they're not serving your needs in a way that you want to keep your life on purpose and simplified, then you're not removed. Then you're removing yourself from spirit, and inspiration won't be possible.
Here are some of those fears. Fear of failing. Get rid of it. You cannot fail at anything. Everything you do produces a result. It is what you do with the results that counts. Labeling yourself a failure is meaningless. Fear of disapproval. Get rid of it. You do not need external validation. You are a divine creation of God. Your path is unique and special. Get on with your purpose. Fear of suffering. Get rid of it. You cannot suffer when you know your sacred self. Only the person you imagine yourself to be suffers. Your joy is divine, and so is your suffering. All of the woe is a part of God's plan, bringing transcendent wisdom when you stop judging it. Fear of isolation. Get rid of it. You can never be alone. When you know this, you will never fear loneliness. There is a gigantic support network of loving souls with you on a similar path. Know that to be true. Stay focused on your purpose and forget about being isolated. When you do this, all of the guidance and love that you need will begin to be known by you. Fear of looking foolish. Get rid of it. When you are doing the work of the higher self, you are always on purpose. Whether others judge you as foolish or not is irrelevant. And finally, fear of success. Get rid of it. Replace the fear with knowing that you deserve any prosperity or abundance that comes your way. Know that when you are on the way of your sacred quest, external measures of success will appear. Your success, however, is an inner matter. It is your personal feeling about yourself, and certainly you do not want to be afraid of yourself. These, then, are the 6 fears that interfere the most with the way of our divine purpose. Know that you possess the inner tools to transform your life, and the fear will be gone before you can utter, "Get rid of it." One of those inner tools is to acknowledge to yourself when fear enters your personal picture. When you do notice yourself experiencing fear, please be sure to gently allow it into your awareness, feel it, and refuse to judge it. The first time I had ever walked out on stage to speak before thousands of people and had forgotten my notes, I experienced severe feelings of fear. Not acknowledging my fear would have kept it right there on stage with me. But I surrendered to the fear, while I reminded myself that I was not alone. I went out on that stage with my fear as my companion. Before even a few minutes had passed, I was absorbed in my mission and my fear was gone. By acknowledging the fear, and then doing what you were afraid of anyway, you serve notice on those kinds of self-defeating thoughts. You also take a giant step toward banishing doubt from your life. Fear and doubt are partners. That which you doubt will cause you to be afraid. That which you fear creates doubts about your ability to deal with it. Faith is an antidote to fear and doubt. In most cases, the use of the word faith is associated with developing a religious framework for our lives. Faith and worship in this context go together. I'm not talking about faith this way. I honor whatever your religious persuasion is, but I do not want you to confuse religious beliefs with the actual presence of faith. Faith is akin to knowing God, which is different than believing in God or knowing about God. Knowing, as I am speaking about it, is an experience on a cellular level of personal experience which has not one iota of doubt attached to it. To me, faith is an inner knowing and a capacity to see God in everything, including myself. This kind of faith does not come from books. The kind of faith I am describing does not need a religious service or a holy book. It comes from having the direct inner experience of God as a part of your higher self. It is demonstrated in countless ways in daily life. You do not necessarily have to see this inner light with your senses, yet the experience is known. You know that what you do not see is there for you as well. I've seen my wife, Marceline, demonstrate this inner faith on 7 different occasions when she has given birth to our children. Throughout her pregnancies, she talks to me about her faith in God being with her. She knows that bringing a child into the world is more than a physical experience. She knows that it is a holy opportunity that she has been entrusted with. She has absolutely no doubt about her ability to proceed through all stages of her labor and childbirth without complications, pain, or any suffering. This faith literally puts her into a higher state of awareness, and her physical appearance literally changes. She has actually left the confines of her body. Through the power of her miraculous concentration on what she has to do, she proceeds unaware of surrounding distractions. Her inner faith has literally seemed to banish the doubt about her ability to deliver a baby in a spiritual and pain-free environment. She doesn't believe that God is there for her. She absolutely knows it. The idea of any doubt being present is ludicrous to her. I have been in the labor room with my wife while women all around her were out of control with fear and doubt. Marceline, relying on her faith, is participating in the act of creation as an observer and a faithful participant. In fact, she has taken that same inner knowing based on faith to assist other women in having their babies. She accompanies them through the entire process from the first months of pregnancy through delivery, helping them access their inner selves and reassuring them that if they banish doubt, they will have a spiritual childbirth experience. I have yet to see it fail. Understand that faith is a decision that you make internally. It is a mental decision to know that everything is on purpose. Faith then becomes an energy that resides within you at all times.